we have a game to play.
Here we go again.
Sounds interesting.
So what's the key?
This is a bomb, and it will explode in 2 hours. "3:05 in the afternoon, September 19, 2019. Alias Jaymar planted this bomb right here.
So what now? Are we gonna die?
Are we gonna explode?
So I guess there's no other way but to crack the code.
But there's so many possibilities according to fundamental principle of computing. I think the code is the speed of light, which is 3 times 10 raised to 8 meters per second.
No. I think we have to calculate the distance from Earth to Sun. Is something behind the bomb?
That's a good question, Miss Jimenez. This is the clue given by the code kit.
This is so familiar. I think I've seen this before. I think it's from it's from cosine difference identity, but the thing is, I started to forget.
Then we should do it.
Yes, shit. The ladies, arms at ready.
Ready?
In order to crack the code is to examine the given clue. As you can see right here, this is the angle U, and its point of tangency is a P of U, which is our first point. On the other hand, this is the angle V, which is its point of tangency is a P of V, and that is our second point. It is also quite visible that it says right here that this is angle U minus V, and its point of tangency is the P of U minus V, and that is our third point. And last, another point has been given, and that point is the point A, where it lies on the x-axis. These lines are the radii of the unit circle, and the radii of a circle are all equal. Hence, these lines are all equal. And if you subtract angle V from angle U, the result will be angle U minus V, which lies here, which is also equal to the angle here, which is also angle U minus V. So by SAS postulate, or the side angle side postulate, these two triangles are congruent, and this line from point 1 to point 2 and from point 3 to point A are also equal. With the given points, we can now identify the coordinates. So let us start with the first point, which is the P of U, and the coordinates are cosine of U and the sine of U. For the second point, which is the P of V, the coordinates are cosine of V and the sine of V. And as for the third point, which is the P of U minus V, the coordinates are cosine of U minus V and sine of U minus V. And lastly, for the point A, the coordinates are 1, 0. Why? Because it lies on the x-axis. Using the distance formula, which is equal to the square root of x sub 1 minus x sub 2 quantity squared plus y sub 1 minus y sub 2 quantity squared, and by means of substituting the values, we can now get the distance from point 1 to point 2 and from point A to point 3. So, point 1 to point 2 is equal to the square root of cosine u minus cosine v quantity squared plus the sine of u minus sine of v quantity squared. And the distance from from point A to point 3 is equal to the square root of the cosine of u minus v minus 1 quantity squared plus the sine of u minus v minus 0 quantity squared. And since these two are equal or congruent, we can say that the cosine of u minus cosine of v quantity squared plus the sine of u minus the sine of v quantity squared is equal to the cosine of u minus v minus 1 quantity squared plus the sine of u minus v quantity squared. So we extracted the square roots since these two are equal. And also we eliminate the 0 since the 0 has no value. So the next step is to expand the squares of binomial. So let us start with the left side of the equation. So the cosine u minus cosine v quantity squared will become cosine squared u minus 2 cosine u cosine v plus cosine squared v by means of the FOIL method. And also, the sine u minus sine v quantity squared will become sine squared u minus 2 sine u sine v plus sine squared v. Let us now move on to the right side of the equation. So the cosine of u minus v minus 1 quantity squared will become cosine squared of u minus v minus 2 cosine of u minus v plus 1, and just copy the sine squared of u minus v. The next step is to regroup the terms with the same angle. Next is to regroup the terms. So let us group the terms with the same angle. So it will become cosine squared u plus sine squared u, and the plus cosine squared v plus sine squared v. And just copy the remaining terms that are not grouped. So minus 2 cosine u cosine v minus 2 sine u sine v. On the other side of the equation, we will do the same thing. So it will become cosine squared of u minus v and the sine squared of u minus v. And just copy the terms that are not grouped. So minus or negative 2 cosine of u minus v plus 1. Next is we'll use the Pythagorean identity number 6, which is the sine squared theta plus cosine squared theta is equal to 1. So the terms that we grouped a while ago will be equal to 1 because both have the cosine squared and the sine squared, and the main operation of the two is addition. So the cosine squared u plus sine squared u will become 1 plus the sine squared v plus cosine squared v will also become 1. And just copy the terms that are not grouped. So minus 2 cosine u cosine v and minus 2 sine u and sine v. And also to the other side of the equation, the cosine squared of u minus v plus the sine squared of u minus v will be equal to 1. And copy the terms that are not grouped. So minus 2 cosine of u minus v plus 1. So if you will add 1 plus 1, the result will be 2. And if we add also the 1 plus 1 here, the result will be 2. So, if you transpose this one onto the other side of the equation by addition property of equality, the 2 on the both sides will be cancelled. So what will be left is the negative 2 cosine u cosine v minus 2 sine u sine v is equal to the 2 cosine of u minus v. And to eliminate the numerical coefficient of the cosine of u minus v, so we will multiply both sides by negative 1/2 and negative 1/2. So if you multiply the negative 1/2 in the first term, so we will cancel negative 2 and the negative 2 on the denominator. So what will be left is only positive cosine u cosine v. And also if you multiply the negative 1/2 into this term, sine u sine v will be left. And also to this term, so it will be equal to cosine of u minus v. And since these angles are only represented by a variable, so we can replace it by an assumption. So let A be u and let B be v. And by replacing all the values of u by A and all the values of v by b, so we can now have the cosine difference identity, which is the cosine of A minus b is equal to cosine A cosine b plus sine A sine b. So geniuses, we just derived the cosine difference identity. So now we can diffuse the bond. So geniuses, what are we waiting for? Brickle babies?
Intelligent, witty, smart, brilliant,
Exuberant?
so!